You know what a harlequin is? A harlequin's role is to serve. It's nothing without a master. And no one gives two shits who we are beyond that. The Joker and I broke up. I wanted a fresh start. But it turns out I wasn't the only dame in Gotham looking for emancipation.
Spectacular news! Miss Quinn, she belongs to me.
Who are you guys?
Here's the deal, Quinn. You need me!
He's after all of us now. None of us are walking out of here unless we work together.
What year? You gotta be kidding me.
Isn't this fun? It's just like a sleepover. We should order pizza. Big Cosmos. Harley, focus. Okay. I'm the one they should be scared of. Not you. Not Mr. J. Because I'm Harley freaking Quinn.
Who's having a good time?
Get ready, ladies. Psycho chick. I never call a woman a chick. I'll accept broad, lady, woman, and on occasion, bitch. Bitch? What are you talking about? That for me, will you?
But all right, so me and Tia are doing this video to break down Birds of Prey. Tia has finally saw it. So I am very curious to hear from Tia, rather than talking this entire time myself. I want to hear from you. Just to start, actually, the first thing I want to know is, I kind of want to go a little step by step. Walk me through the beginning. Your thoughts of the beginning. Let's kind of stop at where Renee stops Harley's sandwich. Let's go from the beginning to about that point.
Okay. So obviously, Birds of Prey not only was a big discussion when it first came out, we've been discussing it since it frickin' was being promoted and the ups and downs of our enthusiasm via the trailers. And finally, instead of buying it for $19, I was finally able to rent it for $5. So I was like, let's do this. And the beginning, when it started, automatically reminded me of like a mixture of Deadpool and some, like, obviously we had that cartoony type of start to it. So, and I don't mean to really compare it to Deadpool because I've seen a lot of people do that, but it's automatically what I think about. You have Harley doing a voiceover. It's very quirky and, very rated R. I automatically agreed with you when you said there was no need for it to be rated R. There was no need to have as many cursings in it. And this is coming from someone who is not a prude at all, but I'm like, you didn't have to do that. But anyway, I like the way they explained Harley breaking up with the Joker. I thought that was fine. A nice little quick recap. It's over with. And that's not something that is so uncommon. We've seen that happen. Joker is a very up and down type of person. So I did like seeing Harley kind of do normal girl things when we get broken up with the loves of our lives. We, go and get drunk and party and cut our hair and eat Cheese Whiz out of a can and stuff like that. So, I dug that. But so it obviously was very Harley centric. It really wasn't a Birds of Prey movie, but I enjoyed the pace in the beginning. I forget if it was this far in, so correct me if I'm wrong, but did Black Mask literally like take those people's faces off before the egg sandwich dilemma?
I want to say it was after it, because remember, she goes far into the story before once she gets to the police station, and kind of goes through, she kind of says, hold on, let me go from the beginning.
Right.
And then I think that's when we get the proper introduction of Black Mass. Because if I'm remembering it correctly, because I've seen this movie like at least a gajillion times, it starts off with, obviously, like you said, going through the breakup. Then I believe we see Renee investigating the crossbow killer, the crossbow killer's kind of like the little massacre thing, which, by the way, it didn't copy it, but it seemed very reminiscent, or was trying to seem very reminiscent of Daredevil season 2, where the cops were investigating just the massacre that the Punisher had left, which, by the way, still
it was one person.
Right. Still some of the best visuals I've ever seen in my life. Those guys just so freaking amazing on that show. But anyway,
I know.
I'm sorry. It's just the idea that you saw all those bullets coming through the glass and you never saw the shooter. And I just keep thinking to myself, picture if you weren't a comic book fan and you didn't know who that was. And you're just like, who are all these people that are shooting at all these people? And it's like, no, it's one man. It's not people. It's just one guy.
Okay. I'll say really quick before we continue on. I didn't know that was just one man. I knew that Daredevil, season 2 was going to introduce the Punisher, but the way they set it up, I really believed that it was a whole bunch of people. I was like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, I don't know a whole lot. And then, of course, when they revealed, no, it's just one man, it's still one of the best, like, pieces of that entire show ever. But
it was unexpected, because, again, I still think the best portrayal of Punisher is Punisher Warzone. That movie was allowed to just be really violent, like just outrageously violent, bones protruding from kneecaps and stuff. So I just never would have thought Daredevil would have been able to go as brutal as they did for season 2.
It was pretty gory when Frank, used his shotgun against that Irish mobster. Like, I still have to look away when I rewatch that. I'm like, oh, Jesus.
I have to look away just watching the prison scene. That was just very, it felt real. Like,
it did.
Felt like he just walked in there and just started murdering people. So that was terrifying. But yeah, I going back to Birds of Prey. So we see Renee kind of investigating that. We see that the cops don't really necessarily take her seriously.
Which, by the way,
good.
I have to interrupt because I have to get this on air. I don't know why it bothers me. So please, if I'm making such a big deal out of this, I do apologize. But I enjoyed CathyYan giving some love for the bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich, but that's not the type of bread that you use it on. Like, let's be real, okay? That bothered me for some reason so much when Harley was eating it. I'm like, that's like a ciabatta roll. You don't eat it on a ciabatta roll. You eat on a freaking Kaiser roll. But anyway, that bothered the hell out of me for some reason. I was like, you were so close, Cathy, to being so authentic to, like, New York life, because that's essentially what Gotham is, and it didn't go all the way. But I want to say, when it goes back to retell the story, that especially reminded me of the first Deadpool, because that's exactly what Deadpool did. He got you up to a certain time, and he was like, but wait, let me actually explain how we got to this. And I'm like, I didn't really need that succession of it. It just, I don't know. But yeah, back to Renee. I kind of liked her. We were talking a little about her character, and I know that you felt that maybe she was a little unnecessary to the group, or
not
at
a little.
Least
Not a little, Tia. She was extremely unnecessary, not only for that movie, but for where they went with the character. And it's crazy because Rosie Perez is such an amazing actress. when I heard she was going to be in this, I'm like, yeah, man, Rosie Perez, you know, getting into a DC film, this is going to be awesome. And as the movie went, I'm like, you know, I don't mind the character. She's getting a little annoying. I don't mind. And if the movie had ended differently, I would have had no issue with her character. But I don't want to get too far ahead. But no, I want to make sure I preface that. It was not a little, Tia. I felt she was extremely unnecessary.
Okay.
For so many reasons. You could have just had any run-of-the-mill detective that could have helped. You know, could have had a serviceable role for this plot. But
Yeah.
anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, so I mean, I think we were talking about, I did love that. First of all, Harley decides to make this big public announcement that she is, you know, no longer with Mr. J. And I do love that kind of opens her up for pretty much, you know, everyone to try and get a piece of her, because as we see, Harley was very much allowed to really do whatever she wanted to do. And I like that she kind of realized that. And, you know, now everyone's after her. The law is after her. All these like people are after her, but it's like all these little goons couldn't compare to obviously Black Mask, who now wants to be after her. But backtracking a little is what was it gonna say? Oh shit. I did like that we got to kind of see her more in, like, say, a quote-unquote normal setting. I like that with my superhero movies. Not all the time, obviously, but I like kind of getting a break from them just being in the comic book role and seeing them more as, like, you know, because you wonder that sometimes, what do some of these characters do on their off time? Well, Harley goes and gets drunk and has a hangover just like everyone else, and deals with the breakup just like
she does roller derby.
She gets a hyena which that I wasn't excited. That was so gory when you see literally the leg with like the bone protruding out of it, and she fed the freaking guy to the hyena. It was like, okay, which goes to show you, like, Harley is not this like goody two shoes now that she's not with Mr. J.
I do want to
still quote unquote. Go ahead.
No, go finish.
I was just finishing a quote unquote bad guy.
Yeah, no, very true. Very true. The one thing that I had wondered, and it's thinking too deep, and I think if the animated show didn't exist, I probably wouldn't even have thought much of it. I did kind of seem like they had rushed her recovery phase, the phase of kind of realizing that Joker was bad for her, kind of realizing why she needed to emancipate. I kind of felt like that was like a in the moment thing that she kind of just stuck with, when in actuality, you would think, I'm not saying this is fact, but you would think going through something toxic like that, it's a process. It's someone helping you realize. That's why the cartoon did it so beautifully. Poison Ivy was like, look, he does not love you. Like, he would take Batman over you. And seeing that kind of
because you know, they tried to fit in this whole Birds of Prey storyline in it. If it was just strictly a Harley Quinn movie, you know, then freaking if it was just a Harley Quinn movie, they could have explored that more. But because they wanted to put the Birds of Prey thing in there, I don't think they had time, maybe.
I think what would have made more sense is if you had said that Harley and Black Canary had known each other for for a long time, or they used to know each other. Just something along those lines. And then, you know, Black Canary watches TV. She sees Joker and Harley on the news every day. She could be that friend that told her, like, probably should stop seeing this guy. He's, like, really bad for you.
Have her take the role of Poison Ivy, as we've seen Poison Ivy in the past.
Right. I'm sure people would tell me I'm looking too much into this, but to me, it's important. If you're telling me that she's realizing her emancipation, my question immediately is why? You go to therapy and you tell your therapist, hey, I'm all good. Your therapist wouldn't say, okay, take care. They said, whoa, what happened? Like, what made you feel like you were ready to leave, and everything's better now? So I think that that's part of the process.
Well, and that's the thing is that
Good.
Harley didn't leave. The Joker left her. So it wasn't like she had this epiphany where she was like, I need to get out of this relationship. The Joker broke up with her, and it was her having to kind of talk herself down from that sort of reliancy that she's had on him for so long. So that to me makes it, because she wasn't even at the point realizing how bad he was for her. She was totally in love and then gets dumped and then having to essentially backtrack. She wasn't ready. So she would have been, I think, even more upset, and that would have lasted longer. It to me felt like the movie was so hell-bent on making the point of shitting on the Joker and the relationship, that they didn't even want to like touch it. But it's like, that's not real, and that's kind of what the animated show did so well. It's like, we know how shitty the Joker is. We know how toxic that relationship was and how poorly he treated her. But that didn't matter to her when he essentially made it seem like he wanted to open the door back up for her, because that's how it would really be. That's how it is with relationships like that.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this, and I know this isn't going to sound too progressive, but part of what I not loved, but part of what I thought was interesting about the Joker and Harley story was how real it was of knowing that at any given point he could just show back up and go, I love you. Like, I blew up 3 banks for you. And she would run back. So, the biggest question on my mind is if we will ever see Joker again with this version of Harley Quinn. And if we do, has David Ayer and Cathy essentially broken up one of the, not best, but one of the most longest relationships
iconic.
Iconic, there you go. I'm sorry. Iconic, thank you. Most iconic relationships in the DC universe. And I start to think, will we ever see a Joker reunite with Harley, even if it's for Harley to kind of give him the middle finger and say, like, I don't need you. It's an interaction that
that's the thing is that seems to be the problem. Like, I don't know how, because this may not sound too progressive coming from me either, but the Joker is one of the most iconic villains of all time. One that us who are, comic book fans, or even if you're not a comic book fan, you know who the Joker is, and you get excited because the villains are the best. Right. Yeah, the heroes are great, but the villains are who you really show up for. But now suddenly there's this thing in modern pop culture to like completely erase Joker. That's why there was so much backlash about the Joker movie, is because suddenly people kind of want to like put their fingers in their ears and go la 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 la, I don't care about the Joker. And so it's like now there's this big push, like we got to get Harley away from Joker. And again, as I just said, their relationship is extremely toxic, but she's messed up too. And that's kind of what, like, every person needs their ride or die. If the roles were reversed, then you would say, well, he's just as crazy as she is, blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's not, to me, a male and a female thing. It's more of like having someone who's that messed up. And I think even DC realizes that, because they gave the Joker another girlfriend. It's not like they said, okay, the Joker never gets to get a girl. You just, in the comics, they just gave him another girlfriend because you clearly sat there and said that, even someone like him needs someone who can match him. And to me, I don't know who this new girl is. I forget her freaking name, but I'm sorry, no one can match him like Harley Quinn can.
I don't disagree, but I love her. I can't remember her name. I feel like you put me on the spot now. But I can't remember her name. But I do love the idea of him having someone that's not Harley. If you're going to force us to go through a world where they're, obviously they're not going to get together again. So the first thing I said to Joel when he showed me that was, like, I immediately said to him, this has to be the plot of Gotham City Sirens. And he goes, what do you mean? And I go, the plot could literally be Harley, it's been a year. or it's been 6 to 8 months, whatever. Harley now has, she's met Poison Ivy, she's met Catwoman. They've formed like this crazy team that's causing chaos. And Joker comes back to Gotham looking to reclaim it. Obviously, we just saw the Black Mass die, so it seems like they're starting to become voids that are open up again. And Joker has a new lady on his arm. And it looks, instead of going the route of Harley's jealous, you could just go the route of Harley now feels as though, just like the cartoon's doing, she feels as though she could run Gotham the same way he thinks he can run Gotham. And it's a power struggle. So it's Joker, his new girl, and his goons versus the Gotham City Sirens.
And you could show Harley being independent and powerful, because it's not like she wants to get back with the Joker to claim Gotham by his side. She wants to claim Gotham without him even in the picture.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I would have no objections to either David Ayer directing Gotham City Sirens, or I'd actually love to see David Ayer and Cathy come together to do Gotham City Sirens, ultimately because their movies flow into each other. So it's
because Cathy did, like, moving back to Birds of Prey, Cathy did have like a great style. It's unbelievable to think that this is really her second picture ever, and for her to really pull it off. There were some really great visuals. I liked the soundtrack, the costumes. We'll get into it later. I told you what costume I didn't like, but I loved Harley's outfits. Black Canary looked awesome. And I think, she really knows how to kind of set the scene. So she does, it did feel like, this obviously felt like an art house picture. It was a lower budget than any other DC movie, so she had that to play with her, but it didn't feel like she only had, say, 1 or 2 sets. She went out to the field. She had some CGI in it, so she was able to create with less than any other director in DC had. So that is really impressive, and I just had to put out there that, yeah, I ended up liking Black Canary a lot more than I thought I would. She and Harley were definitely my 2 favorites in the movie. Her introduction was great, because I like how she's kind of like, she's not preppy, but she's not like too tomboyish. She's not like so rough like Renee, but she's not so like preppy like, say, Harley, but she's not socially awkward. She kind of is like laid back. She observes. She feels like she very much is in the background scanning through everything.
Yeah, and I have to give Cathy a lot of, I hate to always put the pressure on the director and all the accolades on the director. Whoever's idea it was, I'll say that. If it was Cathy's, then bravo. If it was the writers, bravo. For Renee to have mentioned that Dinah's mother had the same powers and helped out Gotham police, that to me was very important. Joel didn't like this, but I had pitched, what if the reason why we didn't hear about Oliver, see Oliver, what if Oliver is Dinah's dad? Instead of Oliver being with Dinah, Oliver could have been with his mother, and she is the daughter of the original Dinah and Oliver. And I was like, well, that could. Joe was like, no, you were giving me Green Arrow in a DC movie, and I'm like, oh, okay. But no, I love that, because that was very important. The Flash is kind of embroiled in my brain, people getting powers from a freak accident. So it's like the fact that her mother did the same thing and she just developed that power through birth. I'm like, I don't really think that's how it works. I think you either get a blend of it or something completely different, but whatever, maybe it is. But I did like that. I did like that her mother was very important. Her mother was a hero. So it was something that she was destined to become, was a hero. I don't want to get too far to the end, because I have a huge issue that with Black Canary that I'll talk about later. But let's pick up from
Okay.
So we've seen Harley blow up Ace Chemicals. That was very, very, very big.
Mm-hmm.
That was huge for her. The thing that made her who she was, she wanted to get rid of.
Yeah.
So that was important. So we go from there, and then I want you to walk us through from that moment up until where Black Mass actually captures Harley. So we got a lot
Okay.
to comb through.
So I was gonna say that's a lot to cover. I only saw this movie once. So
Okay, all right. So let me help you out here. So okay, so we get into
yeah, help me out here.
we get into what's her name? What was the girl's name? God, why am I blanking so hard? Cassandra Cain.
Sandra Kane. Yeah.
Right. We get into a little bit of Cassandra Cain. We see more of after Harley obviously escapes Renee from the huge chase. That's when Black Mass's goons captures Harley. We see, like I said before, Cassandra Cain. We see that she's a thief. And I think the part I'm skipping over was Black Canary had saved Harley after Harley came out of Black Mass Club very drunk, and these guys were trying to take advantage of Harley. Dinah sprung into action. Go ahead.
Which I love that scene for several reasons. One is not that I love that she was getting, essentially sexually molested, but the fact that they included that in a freaking, comic book movie, and kind of even include like even someone like Harley, even someone like Harley like needs friends, needs someone to look out for her, and not in a, oh boo-hoo, you can't take care of yourself, but in this, everyone needs some help. And that creates such a wonderful scene because Dinah kicked ass in that moment. I loved it a lot. And then that is the moment where Black Mask sees Dinah in action and realizes like, oh, well, I want her as my new driver. Because Harley obviously broke the legs of the former driver.
Yes.
So I like that little interaction between Dinah and Harley. I didn't particularly like Cassandra Cain's portrayal, and this is coming from someone who really doesn't know about the character Cassandra Cain. I know based on what you and AJ have told me, how she is essentially like a ninja assassin in training, and she's very talented even though she's very young. And so for them to kind of like reduce her down to this little pickpocket, I could imagine was quite upsetting for like real comic book fans. So there is that. And I generally dislike stories that have just pretty much like everyone needing to babysit a kid.
Well, I'll say this. And I have a perfect example that I think you'll like. Whenever you have a character like Cassandra Cain that is somewhat of a plot device, like she was in the middle of everything, right? So she was obviously important because she was the center of what they were looking for. Problem with that was it legit could have been anyone. And I think that was AJ's biggest issue is that why would you take Cassandra Cain, who essentially is like this badass, kick-ass machine. She's essentially a better version of Hit Girl in the comics. Why would you take that character and choose to water her down so much to becoming this little petty thief? It could have just been anyone. You could have just named someone something. The problem that I had was the character wasn't important enough. Like that could have been anything. It could have been Harley stole the diamond and Black Mask trying to get it back from Harley. Where a plot device is important is the way Punisher Season 2 handled a parental figure kind of plot. And the reason why it was done well was you see Punisher had nothing. He needed something to kind of help keep him grounded and kind of remember the humane side of himself. So it was more so of trying to fill something that he was not necessarily yearning for, but definitely in need of. Because Karen couldn't be there, obviously, every day for him. So he needed someone. So that's what she was. So she was vital.
And I'm sorry, Karen was not a daughter figure. I'm going to put that out here right now.
True.
Right?
Very true. Very true. I know you want to,
okay.
I know you want them together, but no, but
But
my point is that's how important that character was to the Punisher. Cassandra Cain didn't really serve that kind of purpose. So you look at it and you go, well, her mother wasn't really anybody, you know, her dad wasn't anybody important. Like, at least if you were trying to tie it into something that could be a story plot down the line, all right, cool. You know, I could sit through that. But the fact that she was legit not important for anything besides the fact that she stole it and, you know, and ate it, it was like, why am I supposed to care about this character? Like, all right, she has abusive parents, okay, all right, you know, but why?
And that's very strange that she ate it, considering like it's a diamond, and I wouldn't ever think of swallowing a diamond or anything.
The crazier thing was, Tia, the diamond wasn't that big, right? Here's where it started to lose me with Cassandra Cain. The diamond wasn't that big, and she had shown you that she was hiding things in her cast. First thing I thought was, why didn't you hide that in your cast? It wasn't that big. It wasn't like it was this big. It was like this big. So I'm like, you swallowed it? You just put it in your cast. So I'm like, that was just like, it was the weirdest thing ever, because I'm sitting here and I'm like, and you never found out what happened to her arm. You know, she was in it for the longest, and at the end of the movie, she doesn't have it, and it's like, why? Why are you doing all these weird things with this character for obviously no purpose other than, like, I guess a visual? So I mean, that really, really, really bugged me, because I'm like, you swallowed it, and like that doesn't just go down.
Yeah.
Like movies would have children killing themselves every day. Movies make swallowing something seem so easy. I know people that could barely swallow pills that are like this big. You're telling me you swallowed a diamond this big or a flash drop?
Yeah.
It's like, it's none of that's realistic at all. So I look at it and I kind of go, really felt like she served no true purpose, and that's kind of what made her character to me kind of like, if I don't see her ever again, I'd be okay.
Yeah. I feel the same way with that character. To me, it felt more of like a nuisance, because now you have all these characters that need to babysit her and be on the lookout for this, and literally people, you know, I don't know. To me, it's like, say with Logan, right? He obviously had his little tiny companion, but she kicked ass, and she like
very
was
important
the
to
best.
the story too. Yeah, she was
And
very story.
Absolutely, but you didn't have that with Cassandra Cain. So I didn't necessarily like that. I didn't necessarily need that. I don't know what the purpose of that was, other than to maybe show the maternal instincts of all of the characters. I'm not sure.
It didn't really kick in for any of them. I mean, sure, you could say Black Canary to a degree, but Harley screwed the kid over the first chance she got, and really the only reason she saved her at the end wasn't necessarily because she felt like that was her kid or something like that. It was literally so she would stop being a shitty person. So it wasn't even like, I feel like this kid's like my daughter. You know, it was like, I'm really tired of being like a really shitty person, so like, I'm gonna help the kid. So I'm like, that also didn't make any sense. And I'll point this out too. Harley's in Suicide Squad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where's Cassandra Cain when she's in Suicide Squad, right? So I'm
James Gunn isn't paying attention to that.
James Gunn probably didn't even see the movie. I don't know what Harley did in that movie, but she's completely different in mine. So I mean, there's just
I wouldn't be upset of if he literally just watched the first Suicide Squad and decided never to watch Birds of Prey and just base his Harley on what he saw in David Ayers. I wouldn't be mad at it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I look at it like this. I go, this is where DC kind of stresses me a little bit. You go, Suicide Squad leaks into Birds of Prey, right? And then when it leads into Birds of Prey, you kind of have this gap to where it's kind of like they just expect you to make up that time in your own head. So then you go from Birds of Prey to Suicide Squad. It's like, all right, well, a logical person would ask, well, where's Cassandra? Like, where's Cassandra Cain? How far has Harley come in her business? That obviously she set up at the end of the movie. So it's like, are any of these going to be answered? And I think James Gunn is like unequivocally no. Like, no, I'm probably not going to answer any of that shit. Like, I don't care. So it's utterly confusing because it's like they're supposed to leak into each other, like a continuation of a character, and yet it kind of just feels like you will know nothing unless they make a Birds of Prey 2. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my my headset crapped out.
Oh, shoot. But you can hear me now?
I'm sorry. I can hear you now. Yes. Could you repeat? Was there a question or something?
No, I was just saying you expect, the first Suicide Squad leaked into Birds of Prey, and you kind of, to some degree, would expect Birds of Prey to leak into Suicide Squad, the new Suicide Squad. And ultimately, it feels like it probably won't. So we'll get no explanation to where Cassandra Cain is, and we'll get no explanation as to where Harley is in her new business venture. And that's a little frustrating because it's supposed to be a continuation of a character.
I did think that was a little funny.
Her business at the end?
Yeah, I just thought that was kind of funny that she was always like writing it on the same card and things like that. I don't know. I did like in Birds of Prey that Harley did kind of make sure to mention like the plot very quickly. You know, she mentioned Suicide Squad. I went to prison, then I got teed up, and then we did this, and then we did that, and then I went back to prison, and then we got busted out. And it's like, okay, I'm here, right? Clearly this happens afterwards, which again was my biggest thing because all these directors love to say, mine has nothing to do with the other one. It's a completely separate world, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's not. It's not.
It's not at all. Or I'll say this.
That's just lazy.
It shouldn't be because you should have somewhat of a consistent arc for a character. You could have different interpretations, but I don't want to feel like David Ayer's Harley Quinn is different than Kathy's Harley Quinn, and then will be different from James Gunn's Harley Quinn. It's just confusing. But all right, so we move on. Let's kind of fast forward. Black Mask kidnaps Harley Quinn. Pretty much is saying he's ready to just get rid of her. There's no more, he doesn't have to worry about Joker coming after him, which says a lot. And I wanted to kind of get your opinion on that. How impressed were you with the stronghold that Joker had on Gotham? I mean, we've never seen this. Jack Nicholson's Joker wasn't like this. But to be fair, we had only seen him in one movie, and that was his origin. Heath Ledger's Joker, very much the same. That was his origin. And Phoenix's Joker was very more of a sympathetic character. It wasn't more of a, I'm going to grab this city by its throat. Well, till the end, really. But how impressed were you with how powerful Joker's name was within Gotham?
Yeah, and that's something that I'm going to still call it Jared Leto's Joker, regardless if we ever see him again or if, they decide to recast whatever. But that was the thing about Leto's Joker is that he was very much a gangster and very much in that nightlife scene and that that Gotham was his city. And I like that. I like seeing that everyone else recognized, like, he's the top dog. Black Mask, it was a, powerful character. He was a sadistic, vicious person, but ultimately he owned a freaking nightclub and he had his own, money business. But Joker was on a completely different playing field and people knew that. I like that, especially when you would assume that other villains, probably some sort of ego or something gets in the way. They don't want to play games or, play ball with other villains in Gotham, but they know that if they cross Joker's side, the repercussions are going to be horrific. So it's better to just kind of play in his field. Joker will allow you to be your other villainy self, but as long as you don't fuck with him. And I like that. So I do have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
How was Ewan McGregor's portrayal of Black Mask? I mean, I'm assuming this is the first time we're getting him in a live action capacity. I certainly don't ever remember him being in any other DC movie. So how was it for you as a comic book fan seeing him come to life? I mean, in the comics is Black Mask such a prominent figure?
Yes. This was weird. He was a little bit more eccentric than he is in the comics. I will say this. I could be extremely wrong, so I'm prefacing that first. It felt like Kathy stripped some of the masculinity from the two male leads to kind of water it down a little bit, to kind of then further elevate the ladies, to which, if that's what she was doing, I didn't really have an issue with it. But Black Mask is kind of more so hands-on, kind of nothing like that, really. The most accurate thing about Black Mask compared to the comics that they did in this movie was how larger than life he always felt. The moment where he made the chick stand on the table and start dressing and then like take her dress off, it's something I could see the comic book Black Mask doing. Him willing to kill a little girl, that's something I could see the Black Mask in the comics doing. Everything else was different. Same with Zaz. Everything else was pretty different. Even if you watch Gotham, that Zaz is different than the one you just saw in this movie. The one you saw in this movie, again, is a little bit more eccentric than what you're used to from the comics. Zaz was just a pure sociopath. Didn't really talk all that much. And would rather just start cutting you than have a conversation. But I had no problems with what Ewan McGregor did. I think I would have liked to have seen him somewhere else first before this ended up being his one and done. Because I mean, and that's another thing as to why I hate the way the DC universe is because picture if we could have seen a movie with Batman trying to stop the corruption of both Black Mask and Joker. Like they're having literally like a war to see who could take over Gotham, and Batman has to come in and stop the two. Probably something we'll never see. Well, let me not say probably. Black Mask is dead, so we won't. But to answer your question and pass it back to you, I had no issues really with what they did. It just felt like she watered them both down. And if I'm wrong, I apologize, Kathy. And if I'm right, no big deal. Black Mask to me isn't like Batman, it's where it's like, you got to make him perfect. You can take your creative liberties. It just did feel, though, like they watered both of them down to kind of balance it. So it wasn't too masculine. So, I mean, that was really my only issue, if I had to say any. But Ewan McGregor, it's hard not to love that guy.
Yeah, it is. I would say that I thought that Ewan, he was able to portray a very dangerous person really well. Like there were times that I felt a little terrified, especially when he had those poor family hanging and he at first was going to let that girl go and then decided to be like, yep, just take her face off. And I was like, oh my God. And when he had that woman, as you said, undressed right on the table, so I was able to feel that this is someone who is dangerous and will literally, and especially how much he disliked family. Very like no room for that at all. When he was speaking with the one guy who he ends up skinning, and he's like, oh, blah 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 family, and he's like, F family, seriously, just F them. That all I didn't like some of the other sides of him, like how with the girl who he was going to let go and he's like, it was a snot bubble, ew. Or when he was telling Dinah about the shrinkage head and he was like, ew, and stuff. And I didn't really like those little personality characteristics. It kind of made you not take him so seriously. Right. And I didn't like that. I think I probably would have liked him to be a little bit more, stone-faced, because it would have gotten the chilling aspect to me just a little bit more.
I would love to ask Kathy why they didn't just go the route of just making him a stone cold gangster. I mean, it wouldn't have changed the movie a bit. You still could have had that get up on the table, dance for me. Like you could have still had that.
Yeah.
it seemed weird as they went, and you got two really, 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 really good actors to play Zaz and Black Mask. It just felt eccentric a little bit. Like, why? What? Like, why is he like that? Go ahead.
My thing is that I feel like maybe Kathy, I could be wrong about this, but Kathy was trying to get a little bit of an added extra diversity into the movie, you know, with perhaps Black Mass sexuality. But maybe DC didn't want to go all the way and maybe show him with like a boyfriend or something. So instead of having perhaps, you know, a gay villain, you have someone who just feels like more of a stereotype than anything else, you know? So it's like, if anything, I felt that if Kathy was trying to go in the direction of that, it was maybe, if anything, a little bit offensive. I don't know. I just felt like, where are you going with this? Are you I didn't know if that's where Kathy was going with it. And you know, I don't know. I could be totally wrong there or something if she was trying to bring in that type of, you know, we've never really seen someone who's a villain and say, you know, they're gay or something like that. But it's like, that just felt like a throw-in to me, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It's funny you say that, because a lot of people said, you know, Black Mask and Zaz were, you know, obviously in love. I never really got that. I've seen plenty of times where the sidekick is just falling all over the boss. Or I've seen examples to where the sidekick, or the second in command, rather, sidekick sounds horrible. The second in command is supposed to be the stronger of the two, as far as mentally. So you kind of see Zaz picking him up when he's starting to kind of crumble mentally. It's kind of picking him up.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've seen stuff like that. I don't recall them kissing or doing or anything that kind of really showed intimacy. You know, I mean, sure, is their relationship something you would assume the prototypical guy friends wouldn't really have? Sure, yeah, possibly. I just never really felt like she committed to them being gay, and I kind of feel like the movie didn't show otherwise. But I mean, if that's what she was going with, to me, I don't know why people don't think gay guys are extremely masculine, because they are. Like, it could have been, you know, you could have still went with that gangster vibe, and if he loves guys, he loves guys, whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm like, again,
I only mention that because.
Go ahead.
I only mention that because before the movie came out, there were articles that were saying like, oh, you know, DC is going to have its first gay villain or something like that, you know, and that's what I assumed. So I'm like, in my head, that's what I had, and then it's like, then they never really committed. Then they kind of backpedaled a little, and then I felt like it was just, I don't know. I didn't understand the direction, because as you just said, you could have, if you wanted to have him, you know, be in a same-sex relationship, you still could have had him been more serious. You didn't have to have him so eccentric. I think I just really disliked the eccentricness, and I don't know where the need for that came from, other than if CathyYan was just trying to do something with that and she wasn't able to.
Yeah, maybe we just missed what her delivery was supposed to be. Which, you know, it happens, but I also don't think her delivery of it was clear. But yeah, that's why I said it kind of felt like they watered her down. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. This is when I was actually trying to watch Supergirl. But watching Kara fight Superman, and seeing how she just was like wiping the floor with him, I'm like, all right, well, you obviously did this to like show how strong Supergirl is, but we know he would wipe the floor with Kara. But you know, and I get it. So if you were watering those two guys' masculinity down some, so you could kind of tone up the female presence in that, I don't mind. You just have to kind of come a lot harder than you did. But I mean, it was something that was a bit confusing also. But to get off that, I do want to ask you about something I know you freaked out about. How excited were you when you saw your David Ayer's Suicide Squad Easter egg?
Oh, I loved it. I definitely loved it. As you know, I liked Suicide Squad, and
Mm-hmm.
David Ayer's been getting so much flack. We talked about it, which I admittedly wasn't even on half of that podcast because of my freaking Wi-Fi. But it's funny how everyone likes to shit on David Ayer, but it's like, uh, I would like to think that CathyYan and even James Gunn have to give him some sort of credit for at least starting this. It's funny that everyone shits on the movie, but it seems like the Suicide Squad universe is kind of one of the more thriving ones within the current DC universe.
Yeah.
So I did especially like that, and it did let you know where Birds of Prey is within this. And I like that because to me it set like, are we going to one day see Dinah in this world or something like that, interacting not beyond the team, but some interaction, or as you said, is it going to build to Gotham City Sirens, and just knowing that they all exist within the same playing field.
Yeah, I mean, this movie, albeit I won't really argue the idea of it was not really a Birds of Prey movie, even though I feel as though the Birds of Prey were highly represented.
No, it wasn't.
No, I look at it like this, too. I watch Arrow, right? And even though Arrow exists, there's still people that have no idea who any of those characters are, even though they were all, well, obviously except for Renee and Harley, they were all in the Arrowverse. We had Huntress. We had Black Canary. And people still went into this movie not knowing who they were. That tells you something. They're not a selling point. So you very much had to have something lead the way to create a path for these characters. And that's all Harley was. And that's important because if you don't have that, it's hard to really try to drive this. So, I mean, I look at it and I kind of go, I left this movie feeling like if you didn't know who they are, you do now. And if you like those characters, maybe not necessarily the portrayals, but if you like the characters, the movie did its job. And if you like the characters, it very much then was a Birds of Prey movie. Let's not get this twisted. Captain America Civil War is an Avengers movie with a Captain America storyline. No, I wouldn't even say Captain America storyline with an Avengers storyline. That's not a Captain America movie. No one classifies it as that. This wasn't that. This still felt like, okay, Harley's in it, Harley's the focus, but now we're being introduced to these other characters. Civil War, from the first 10 minutes, I'm like, this is gonna be an Avengers movie. Like, this is not gonna be no Cap story. It started with showing you the history of how I think it starts with Bucky killing Tony's parents. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like,
it was a Cap story. It was a Cap story in the sense that it showed the extent of what he was willing to do for his friend and his reserve against, say, Tony and the Sokovian Accords, because then it ended especially with him reaching out to Tony and letting him know, like, I still love you, even though this happened, and if you need me, I'm here, So I think even though it had all these other characters and all these other plot lines, that it's still at the heart of it was more focused on Cap. I don't know. But I do like the cheat of it. Like, I'm not gonna, complain of getting essentially a fifth Avengers movie.
Yeah, no, I just look at it and I go, you look at Thor 1 through 3. That is a complete arc of a character. You look at Iron Man 1 through 3. That's a complete arc. Start throwing the chess piece in the ocean, shows you the evolution of Tony that led right into
Endgame?
Yes, Infinity War. That led right into Infinity War. He got his happy ending. Ragnarok led right into Infinity War, but it was Thor's becoming. It was Thor becoming what he had always what his father had always meant for him to become, which was a leader of his people. Essentially, he gave it away, but it was him. It was the progression of the spoiled brat turned king. You look at Cap's arc and you kind of go, the third one gave me no conclusion on Cap's story. It let me know the man's a fugitive. Like, that's all that was. So you look at it, you go, Endgame was the conclusion of Cap's story, not Civil War. So you kind of go, the conclusion of Cap is legit. Captain America 1, Captain America 2, 3, Infinity War, and then Endgame. So he had like a 5-movie arc to complete his story. So I look at, to bring it back. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, to me, I feel like Marvel wanted to do the Civil War storyline. They wanted to get that so that they could then continue on with the universe and how that split was going to lead into, say, Infinity War and stuff. But they didn't know where to do it. They're like, we can't do another Avengers movie, and we're not going to do one that's just called Civil War. Well, let's just put it in caps, because the whole thing is Cap versus Iron Man anyway.
I will say the way they did it was fine, but you absolutely could have put an Avengers movie in between Age of Ultron and Infinity War. No one would have complained. I mean, sure, we wouldn't have got Endgame till maybe this year or next year, because that's how they would have had to have spaced it out. But you 100% could have. But the point of me bringing that up was to say, you watch Birds of Prey, and I do feel as though the Birds of Prey were highly represented in this movie. You even said it. You came out of this really liking Black Canary. So I feel as though Cathy did her job. Because if you came out saying you didn't like any of the characters, then it shows that, they didn't do a good job kind of introducing you to this world of Black Canary, Huntress, Renee, blah, blah, blah. So I look at it and I go, if you like even one of them, they did their job. Even though that team is not the actual Birds of Prey. For anyone watching, the actual team, the original team is usually Huntress, Black Canary, and Barbara Gordon. Barbara Gordon usually is Oracle, but I think there's been some runs where she was Batgirl. But it's never been Renee.
And it's so stupid why they didn't do it, because apparently they're saving her for some Batgirl movie that probably is never going to happen, or if it does happen, it's going to happen like 9 years from now. It's like, you could have used her. There was no need to not include her in this.
I completely agree. It wouldn't have hurt at all. I think the biggest issue for them was they didn't want to introduce a Bat character in something like this. But to me, I'm like, Barbara Gordon's going to be in Titan Season 2 as Oracle. So I'm like, if she could be Oracle there, why couldn't she have been Oracle there? Like, why do I have to look at Renee Montoya? Why do I have to look at her in brass knuckles trying to fight crime with the Birds of Prey? Like, why? But to get back to the story so we can finish this up, we can kind of skip along because we really get we get Harley breaking Cassandra out of prison to take her back to Black Mask, because she had promised Black Mask to get him his diamond back. We obviously see those two start to bond. We see that she was portrayed by her tenant that also had the Chinese restaurant.
I was so mad at that. I was so mad. I wanted him to, because it was like, oh wow, Harley actually has a real human connection that she made all on her own. It's a normal person. It's just some guy who owns a Chinese restaurant. And I also really wanted that food. But, freaking when that happened, but then I was kind of surprised that she let him go, because he was like, oh, Harley, it's just business. And I was like, she's going to kill this guy, especially if she thinks Bruce is dead. I'm like, she's going to kill this guy. And then she didn't. And that was like, all right, development, I guess. But, yeah, I was upset that he betrayed her.
I was more upset because, okay, so I don't like the idea of, if we were to do a primarily I'll give you a better example to a larger degree. You know how Black Panther was literally almost 100% black? At no point did they ostracize and make anyone who wasn't black feel like they were unworthy of that movie. You know, I kind of felt like at any given moment, Birds of Prey was trying to show you how shitty men are. And it was like at every point, it was making sure you understood, no. Men are super shitty. And I'm kind of like, we're not all shitty. Like, I would like some kind of positive representation of a man somewhere in here. So I was hoping he was going to be that. So I was hoping he would say, I only sold you out because like they threatened to kill me and my family, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, that's redeemable. You would understand that. Harley would have understood that. But he's like, oh, no, I just sold you so I can get like a better place. They were offering me, good money. I'm like, no. I don't want every man in Harley's life to be a dirtbag.
Well, not everyone is a criminal mastermind who can make a shit ton of money. Some of them are just scraping by with a small run-of-the-mill restaurant and need to make more. No, I didn't even think about that, honestly. Like, I really didn't think about how it's like, wow, there's really no, like, not one, like, positive at all, which I guess is where, I guess from me, like, from a woman's standpoint, I wasn't thinking about that. I'm like, here's just a story about these women,
If you think about it, like, if someone came to me and said, Black Panther was, like, super offensive to white people, I couldn't see it because I'm looking through it in a different lens. And I think you were looking at it not in a different lens in, like, in a negative sense, just in a different lens of, like, they're showing women out here kicking ass, being great. It's a good feeling. And then you kind of don't pay attention to the fact that every guy, like even the male officers, first of all, the thing that no one even really points out was how smart Kathy was. Did you notice every time Renee walked into the police station, there were no female officers? It was only her. It was all men. It was all men, well, and they were like super shitty to her all the time.
Well, I think that was supposed to be like another play on the fact that she loves 80s cop movies, because clearly we know that in modern day times there are let me not say that because I don't know the statistics here, but there are more women in law enforcement than one. But in the 80s, you would have that one, female officer that all the male officers feel the need to ostracize. So I feel like that was supposed to be even more of a play. Like, she lives within this little 80s, cop movie world where it's like she's the only woman, trying to make it among all these men, and they're all jerks.
I'm like, because that was the biggest reason why well, not the biggest reason. I think it's just a horrible show, but that was one of the reasons why I know myself and a few other people stopped watching Supergirl. It started to become like weirdly political, to where like everywhere you looked, they were trying to make sure you understood like it's a girl's world, and it's like no, we get it. It's called Supergirl, so like I expect it to be a girl's world. Like, you don't have to force the envelope,
It's kind of like you have to walk that fine line, like. Jessica Jones, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was all about female empowerment.
Right.
Jessica even said, people are shitty, and Trish was like, I don't need a man to back me up. But Malcolm was awesome. You had like positive characters to, and it's like, yeah, there's some really shitty men out there. There's
true.
There's also really shitty women out there. But, women have had this plight, like, not to go on a tangent, but season 1, right, with Jessica Jones, where it was like, you literally have a freaking evil villain that's telling her to smile. It's like the one thing that us girls are like drilled in when we're kids. Smile. Why are you not smiling? You'll be. I could be standing. Really quick, I was literally standing in my parking lot the other day, just trying to like get some rays of the sun. And it was in my eyes, and I was kind of like looking down, frowning, and this guy like walks by, and he's like, "What's wrong?" And it's like, is my frown so like, that you have to be like, "What's wrong?" So it's like, I think Jessica Jones did that in a good way of like us women feeling like, yeah, kick-ass empowerment, but also not like being maybe a little political, but not so much to the point where it's like, then you get. The whole point is yes, make stuff to lift people up, but you're never going to get your point across if then all you're doing is bashing someone else. Like, as you said with Black Panther, right? Absolutely. Make a, like, Black Panther, Shang-Chi, there needs to be movies like that, right? But they don't, as you said, and I agree, Black Panther didn't make any I didn't walk out of that movie going, F this movie, you know, blah, blah, blah. Like, because you can do that. You can absolutely do that. But with, say, like something like Birds of Prey, it's like, come on now. You know, we're not selling our point any better by then suddenly making the male demographic absolutely hate us.
Yeah, and I mean, it's important to show the other side always. So if you're a guy, it's important to see Birds of Prey for you to see, like, they exist for more than just, like, you being attracted to them, like, they're an actual person there. You know, so you appreciate the levity of that, but then you look at it and you kind of go, you couldn't have one positive male in that entire movie, like, one cop that's trying to help Cassandra and ends up getting killed, so you're like, oh, that was a really good guy. Like, you had nothing. I guess the best
The hyena was best.
I was just about to say that. That was the best male presence, was the hyena. So, I mean, that to me was kind of just like...
Oh, wait.
So
There was one more.
Go ahead.
There was one more. Sal, the guy who made Harley her bacon, egg, and cheese.
True. And if we want to count it, the guy that rescued... Huntress, the guy that rescued Huntress from the family massacre and trained
and
her,
showed her how to be a badass.
Right. So I okay, all right. So really, you wouldn't count Sal because he literally just gave her a sandwich once. But okay, Sal, the guy that rescued the Huntress. But to me, I'm kind of like, I watched that movie so many times because I just support that movie and love it so much. I'm kind of just like, we're not all bad, Kathy. Like, I promise you, we're not. But no, so we move past that, and I think we can go right to where Harley makes the deal to trade the kid for her freedom, essentially. She asks Black Mask to make sure that no one bothers her, keep everyone off of me. We essentially then get to Harley and Joker's playhouse, which is really awesome, and another reason why you kind of go, I would have loved to have seen more of their story together. That was a really cool looking setup, and it looked really similar to the one the cartoon did. So, like, I wonder how close those two worked together or worked off of each other. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed the ending of this movie. The one part that just blew me away, I'll get to after you tell me what you enjoyed about the wrapping up of this movie. So from the moment where Black Canary and Zaz are driving, and Zaz kind of sees, like, Canary is, screwed them over, gonna screw them over. So kind of walk me through your mindset to end this movie.
Yeah, so that scene definitely had me a little bit on my toes because Zaz seemed like he was very unpredictable. He obviously takes a joyous stance out of torturing people. So I was afraid for Dinah. As you said, I liked seeing Harley's little playhouse because it was just cool. That's so Harley. I did kind of like, I was shocked that, I guess not shocked that she sold out Cass, but I was like, damn, is she really gonna, like, give this kid up? He's really serious that he's gonna, like, tear her freaking stomach up. So, but I liked how it came together with all of them working together. It was literally in that moment of, okay, we need to survive. For, like, Renee, it's like Renee is after Harley. Cass is obviously pissed at Harley for drugging her and taking her there. Can't trust anyone. They've literally just met Huntress. But guess what? If we want to walk out of this building alive, we're gonna have to freaking work together. I love the fun house feel of it. I love, like, the little things that, Dinah was like, when did Harley have a chance to change into her rollerblades? Like, I thought that was hilarious. I'll say something really quick. I still didn't like the way that line was delivered by Huntress. I don't have rage issues. I didn't like it in the trailer. I didn't like it anymore in the movie, but that's that. I love the hair tie scene, as someone with long hair that gets in the way all the time. Because you think about that, right? It's like guys, except for Thor, I guess, but guys don't really have to deal with that while they're fighting, their hair, getting on the way. But Black Canary had some big hair, and that was very realistic. So I just, from that stance, I love that. And I love seeing Black Canary's powers finally. I like that they held out to the end. And I liked how Renee was kind of the one that was like, it's now or never. And she was like, all right, everyone's better, put their hands over their ears. It's going to get serious right now. Harley's fight on her rollerblades, chasing after Black Mask, Huntress helping out with that, I thought was really well choreographed. It really was. And when they get onto the pier, I like how Black Mask was saying, like, hey, I'm here to protect you. Remember, Harley? That's the deal. And Harley realizing, I'm just going to trade Joker for Black Mask and just have another person.
I'm indebted.
I'm indebted to another person. Her realizing, yeah, this may kill me because he's a pretty scary mother effer, but at least it's me who's free. And you should be afraid of me instead. And that's something that we saw even from the cartoon series, where Harley's just like, you all think that the Joker was what made me strong, but I can stand on my own 2 feet. But so I liked all that. I'm going to skip over one part really quick in that scene. And I say that I like the way that it ended off. Harley finally got her egg sandwich and she rolled out with her hyena. And, I was like, Bruce better be okay. So I like that. And I like the girls, all having their margaritas finally. But moving back really quick, I felt that Black Mask's death was really anticlimactic. It didn't look, I didn't think the shot looked good. I didn't think that really, it just felt very rushed. I would have liked to have seen a final battle between Harley and Ian, because we didn't get that. She fought his goons, she chased after him, but we didn't see maybe a hand-to-hand combat between Black Mask and Harley or anything. I mean, I wouldn't have minded if still his fate was to be blown up, but maybe after a little bit of a spat would that have worked better, and it finally, like, last minute or the last ditch effort, oh look, she has a grenade, blowing up. But for them literally to have a 2-second conversation on the bridge and Cass to be like, check out my ring, and it's like, oh okay, fling off. And it's like, why couldn't you have done that in the first place? Apparently it's that easy to fling him off of the freaking pier. So that was very anticlimactic for me.
Yeah, I didn't really need a fight. Black Mask isn't really much of a fighting kind of guy.
Okay.
I just would have preferred if you left his fate open-ended. In case, I mean, I find it very hard to believe that Matt Reeves at some point wouldn't want to use Black Mask. It just fits the world that it seems like he's building.
But he would probably
Good.
But he would probably want a more grounded Black Mask, someone who maybe isn't as eccentric as that version.
That's one thing I always tell people. If they haven't said that he's been Black Mask for 10 years, 5 years, 15 years, it could be a very, still kind of new Black Mask. So if he had survived, the events of losing to Harley Quinn could have been something that made him more hardened. Same way I keep telling people, the events of BVS are what shaped Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor of becoming the Lex Luthor that, we know him to be in Justice League. I think if they had allowed Zack to continue, we would have seen a better Lex from Jesse. Mm-hmm. He has the acting ability to be a better Lex Luthor than what we saw. So I look at it and I kind of go, it's all about progression, and it looked like Zack wanted to progress with Lex, and you very well could have progressed with Black Mask. So I would have liked it if they left it open-ended.
It felt very...
Go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
it felt very like what Marvel does. You give us a villain and they put on a great performance, and then you kill them at the end, and it's like, why do you need to kill your villains every single time? Leave it open ended, even if you don't use him right away. As you said, maybe Matt Reeves decides even his third Batman movie to bring in Black Mask. But now you can't do that because you just killed him. It would have to be a different one.
I will say Harley's line of, they shouldn't be afraid of you. They shouldn't be afraid of Mr. J. They should be afraid of me. I really feel like Cathy watered down Harley. If you go to Suicide Squad and kind of see how David Ayer was setting up Harley, she was a lot crazier in Suicide Squad than she was in Birds of Prey, which is weird because Suicide Squad was PG-13 and Birds of Prey was rated R. And I'm like,
because
she's watered down.
Again, it's this mission, and I don't know if you and I have talked about it through text or something, but it's this new push to make Harley a sort of role model for little girls. And it's like, Harley is crazy. Harley is provocative. And Harley can be the way she was in Suicide Squad. That's why I liked her so much in Suicide Squad, because that's who I imagine Harley as being. And this whole wanting to water her down in Birds of Prey didn't really make sense. It felt like, I don't know. As you said, she was watered down, and it's hilarious considering it was an R-rated movie as opposed to a PG-13 movie.
Yeah, like, to me, I just wanted to feel like she was crazy, and I never really got that.
Yeah.
Like, sure, there was the one scene that even felt out of place where they're driving on a highway where she's like, here, throw this for me. But, like, I want it crazy. I want it crazy to where it's like, after Harley was done shopping, she had a bomb in the store, blew up the store. Just give me crazy. Give me a heart. For example, you watch the animated show, you could see why that Harley would say, you should be afraid of me, not Joker. You would get it.
Yeah.
In this one, you kind of go, what am I really afraid of? Like, you just showed how sympathetic you are. You showed how much you're looking to do the right thing. You showed how much of a caring person you are, how friendly you are. Like, I like a Harley that could walk down the street and just hit you with a bat because she didn't like that you smiled at her. Like, I don't want a Harley that's like, no, if you don't mess with me, I'm not going to mess with you. That's not Harley Quinn. And to your point of them wanting to make her more of a role model, that's purely financial. They know if they have Harley just randomly killing people, mothers aren't taking their daughters to go see Harley Quinn. You need mothers to take daughters to go see Harley Quinn. So what do? You make her seem like she's Batgirl. She's a hero. She helps people. She saves people. Sure, she kind of beats to her own drum, but she's still a good person. Which is sickening because I'm like, she's Harley Quinn, not a Disney princess. But I'm like, I just want a semblance of true crazy, and I think James Gunn will give us that. And if he does, it's going to be the most inconsistent arc I've ever seen in my life with a character.
And people are going to be pissed online and say, oh, blah, 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 blah. I'm not even going to say any, because you can literally fill in the blanks there. But yeah, people are going to get pissed online about that.
There's no way to avoid that, Tia. We've been doing this for too long now. We know there's no way to avoid that. But no, I felt like it lacked the crazy, so that line just didn't hit. I got chills sitting next to my dad watching Dinah use her canary cry. I was like the only person in the theater squealing because I'm like, oh my God, it's coming. My dad's like, what's coming? I'm like, the canary cry. It's so freaking awesome to see a bigger budget than what Arrow had. To see it to where it's actually just her powers, not an inhibitor or whatever. It looked so freaking good. And I loved how it looked
powerful.
It did, and I love how it was strong enough to kind of carry Harley, like push her through. And I even loved the fact that she probably hasn't done this either in a long time or ever, so that's why she passed out afterwards. I'm like, I love the authenticity of it. I love something as simple as her singing in the bar and going just high enough to break the glass. I'm like, yes, Cathy, yes, you get her. But yeah, the only thing that bothered me about the end of the movie was Black Canary's traditional look is a black leather jacket. They gave it to
Right.
Renee in this movie. I don't like it. I also don't like that Renee is part of the team. Why Renee couldn't have just been the Birds of Prey what Gordon is to Batman, I have no idea. Like, can you picture if if James Gordon suited up to join Batman and Robin on a fight? Like, what? No.
Well,
Get out of here. Like, what are you doing?
the Jim Gordon from the Harley Quinn series probably would like to do that.
Oh, he would love to do that, but he's not invited to do so. But I'm like, it's so weird. It's off-putting.
Yeah.
I'm like, why not just have it to be where Renee gets the credit, she becomes the new captain, so she's assisting them from that position, so we still get to see Renee, and we leave the spot open for Barbara to become the third and final member of the Birds of Prey. Or if you want to get more creative and bring someone else in, whatever. I'm just saying Renee shouldn't be there. Like I don't want to see Birds of Prey 2 where I'm like, oh, Huntress is kicking butt, Black Canary's kicking butt. Oh, yeah, there's Renee with her brass knuckles trying her best to save the day. Great. Like, I don't want to feel like that. So I look at it and I kind of go, I despise that with all my heart. I also really didn't like that Cathy didn't take the leap of faith and make Harley's business card say Gotham City Sirens, whatever for hire. I'm like, because I'm sitting there with my dad and I'm like, her card's gonna say Gotham City Sirens.
Oh.
And he's like, no, they're not gonna do it. And then I'm like, Cathy, I just given you so much praise. Why did you do this? So I mean, I didn't really have many issues with this movie. My biggest issues usually with comic book films is them not doing comic booky things. I didn't think this was a bad movie. I thought a few times the pace was a little weird. But Cathy, all in all, I thought did a great job. I gave this movie an 8.5 out of 10. I don't remember what I graded it when me and Joelle did our review. But I've since then have seen it like a gajillion times. I'm sitting here and I'm like, yeah, 8.5 out of 10 is pretty good and right where I think I would want to put it. It hit the right marks for me. But yeah, what would you say?
I honestly would rate it as a 7 out of 10. I enjoyed it. There were just some things that I wasn't too much of a fan of. Harley's voiceover kind of got a little grating at some point. I was talking about this with Kelly, who agreed that we didn't really need the voiceovers. It kind of got annoying at some point. Yeah. Especially with, and we talked about this, and I wanted to mention it really quickly. Margot Robbie's voice for Harley, just especially in this movie, just seemed very off. And I found that maybe Margot Robbie doesn't necessarily know how to do any other American accent other than that, because as I told you, I watched I, Tonya, and Tonya Harding's not from frickin' New York, but yet for some reason she had a New York accent in that movie. So it sounded just odd to me.
No, and I'm glad you said that, because me and Joelle literally almost started like fist fighting each other, arguing about this. I'm not even joking. We almost did. He feels as though, the best you can do with an accent is the best you can do. And I go, accents are representation the same way skin color is. So if Harley's supposed to sound like a New Yorker, if anyone's ever been to New York and listened to someone who's lived there like all their life, and you hear them and then you hear Harley, you kind of go, it sounds more like Margot Robbie than it does Harley Quinn or a thicker New York accent. And I told him, I said, I wouldn't complain about her accent at all if she didn't sound more like Harley in Wolf of Wall Street. And I'm like, that's what always bothers me. If you hear oh, come here, like it sounds just like what you imagine Harley Quinn sounding like. And then you see Suicide Squad and you're like, David, what did you do? Like, it's right there, So I'm like, I wouldn't judge.
I mean,
go ahead.
I mean, it's not as bad as Tom Hardy in Venom or Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange,
Or
but
Elizabeth as Scarlet Witch, trying to sound Russian and
yeah,
sounding abysmal.
terrible. So terrible that they got rid of it. But I mean, Margot Robbie, as you said, yeah, Wolf of Wall Street, that's what, like, this almost baby doll-ish type of voice. I mean, that's
Like,
kind of what was always great about Batman the Animated Series.
to me, whenever you do an accent, all I really ask for is you don't sound too similar to what you actually sound like, because that means you're doing the accent justice. When I hear Kaylee Cuoco as Harley Quinn, it doesn't sound like what I saw when I saw a few episodes of Big Bang Theory. She sounds different, and maybe it's not drastically different, but it does sound different.
It's different enough, especially as someone who kind of I watched the first 6 seasons of The Big Bang Theory regularly, and really only when I sat there and really tried did I go, oh yeah, that's Kaylee Cuoco.
Right.
But right off the bat, no, it sounded like Harley.
Right, and I'm like, if no one told me, because I didn't watch that many episodes, so I'm not that familiar with Kaylee. If no one told me that's who was Harley Quinn, I wouldn't have been able to guess that. I wouldn't have been, because it's different. It is different. But when you listen to Margot Robbie, if I didn't see Suicide Squad and I just heard it, I would say that sounds eerily similar to an interview I heard of Margot Robbie's before. Like, it sounds like Margot Robbie. So that's just my biggest issue, because to me, if you can't get a thicker New York accent then you just got to get more creative. And I told Joelle the thing that I loved about Black Panther was that it was a mix. It was a mix of an actual language and them kind of just playing around with things. But it sounded authentic. Chadwick as Black Panther sounds nothing like Chadwick if he were to just talk to you regular. And
I didn't realize that.
Right? But that to me is a good accent, is that they have to sound different. And Margot just doesn't, and it bothers me because she can. That's what bothers me, Tia, because she can. And that's one of our biggest issues every time we talk Harley Quinn, because I always bring it up because it just really bothers me. If you've heard Tara Strong for like 20 years, you're like, that's what I expect all Harley Quinns to sound like. And throughout history, all Harley Quinns have usually sounded like that. And then you get to Margot, and it's like, ooh, yikes. But no, what would you get? I think you already gave her your grade, right? 7?
7 out of 10. Because I will be honest with you, and I've only seen Birds of Prey once, so it could be an unfair assessment. But if I'm pinning Suicide Squad against Birds of Prey, I like Suicide Squad better still. I liked Birds of Prey. I definitely want to go back and rewatch it to kind of like, but to me it just felt like a smaller movie. I appreciated it for what it was, and I certainly don't believe that it should have gotten the flack that it did. I wish it would have done better in the box office, because that's an argument that people who are haters are using. And it's like, you just need to put it as PG-13. There's no need for it to be R at all. But I liked it, but if I'm talking about what movie I enjoyed watching more, I'm going to say Suicide Squad.
I think you're a little biased, but
no, I mean, I literally walked in with that not wanting to be biased at all. Like, I was completely open to watching this movie and enjoying it. It's just I wasn't as excited, which is fine, because to me it felt more like, all right, in the MCU, right? You love the first Iron Man. You're gonna love Thor Ragnarok. But those, as epic as those can be, they're not going to be to the level of, say, a team-up movie like any of the Avengers, except for Age of Ultron, but any of the Avengers. But with Birds of Prey, the team-up was smaller than, say, Suicide Squad. So that's why maybe Suicide Squad felt bigger to me, and that's why my excitement level is different.
Fair enough. I mean, I can't really argue that. So what grade do you give Suicide Squad?
like an 8 out of 10. So
Okay.
only 1 point.
All right, okay. So
Only
then
one
okay,
point.
okay. All right, then I'll give you that. All in all, Kathy, I think she did a great job. I would love for me and you, Tia, to interview her
Yeah,
one day. I think we have a
would
lot
be
of questions.
great.
I really do think she would block me after our interview. I just have too many geek-like questions that she would need to answer.
You would just ask
Um,
about Harley's accent the whole time.
well, no, because I don't blame that on her. That's a David Ayer issue. And whoever was the voicing coach in that project. So that I don't put at Kathy's feet. I do put Renee Montoya joining the Birds of Prey at Kathy's feet. That's something she needs to answer for. But no, all in all, I supremely support this movie. I got my sister to watch it. I got my aunts to watch it. I got my mom to watch it. It's just a movie that, even if you aren't a comic book fan, you want people to support.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. And Kathy's going to have a great career ahead of her.
oh,
I think that's what's most exciting about seeing this is that, as I said earlier in this, it's so impressive that this is her first movie to be shown, because I don't think anyone saw the first one because it hasn't, like, still to this day gotten a release.
right.
But to know that this is her second only film, and to be this, congratulations. Like, really excited to see Kathy's career from here.
Absolutely. We are huge fans, and we can't wait to see what she does next. Birds of Prey, if you have not seen it, is a movie you should go see. It is a fun time. Whether you're a fan of comics or not, it's just a fun time. So make sure you go check it out. It is now on all major platforms as far as where you could buy movies. So make sure you guys check it out. Tia, this was fun. I love doing these with you.
Yeah,
I love doing these.
I do too.
Thank you, Tia. This has been our review of Birds of Prey. Again, if you have not checked it out, please do so. And stay tuned. We have more episodes of GVN Game Night coming up. We have a huge one coming tomorrow.
Yes.
I think we will have a huge turnout for that one. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to mix up trivia and verses. So it should be a very fun and competitive night. But again, thank you, Tia, and thank you guys for checking out our review of Birds of Prey.